What's going on, everybody? UCF Jaguar back here with GenJag.com, and I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with James Boozes, a fellow UCF Jaguar fan here. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. So tell them a little about yourself, how you became a Jags fan and whatnot.
Oh, man. Well, I've been a Jags fan since I moved to Florida. My family and I were initially in New York, moved down to Florida when I was in maybe first or second grade. It was around the same time when they announced the Jacksonville Jaguars coming to Jacksonville. I lived in St. Augustine at the time, so my whole family being Jets fans were kind of indifferent to the idea, but I immediately jumped shit and was like, I'm going to be a Jaguar, and it's stuck ever since. I grew up going to football games. I played high school football, pee-wee football, got into possibly trying to play college football, but the entire time I was a Jag fan, so it was a great experience.
There you go. Well, if you stayed a Jets fan, you wouldn't be on this video with me, so
Absolutely,
you got that right.
Yes.
All right, hell yeah. So, yeah, what we're going to do today, man, we're going to sit here and actually predict the whole entire Jaguars 53-man roster. Now, this is going to be kind of a long video, kind of detailing everything. So, if you guys want a little sneak peek about what our picks or what our positions are, I'll put our units down in the description box, and also I'll put timestamps at the pinned comment so you can go right to a position that you might be interested in. So, you ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off with the offense. And what other position besides the quarterback? Now, with the quarterback position, there's pretty much two guys that are definitely locked into their spots with Blake Bortles and Cody Kessler. But the whole thing is, will they keep a third quarterback? What do you think?
Is that quarterback named Tanner Lee?
It can be anybody.
Oh my God! Well, if the quarterback is named Tanner Lee, I do not believe they're going to have three quarterbacks on the roster. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy immediately, and maybe it's just the hate of watching him legitimately lose a game for the Jaguars in week 2, but. We'll see how it works out for us.
Yeah.
Or was it week 1 that he lost?
It was week 1, but I think
right.
I think it's pretty clear where he stands on the roster. The fact that we haven't seen him since week 1.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people were. I remember, people were freaking out about this guy. They were like, "Dude, this is the worst pick the Jaguars have ever had." Yep. I can't. I'm just sitting here like, dude, this is a 6th-round pick. It's kind of a flyer spot. I'm not any pick outside of the top 4 rounds. I'm not going to be super critical of. I mean, he'll be a practice squad guy, perhaps, but there's no way he makes the roster. And looking at the Jaguars the past 5 years, they only usually keep 2 quarterbacks on a roster. So
when you have Iron Man Blake, who doesn't miss a start ever, it's really hard to keep more than 2 on the roster.
Yeah, dude, he doesn't ever get hurt. And I mean, you look at the way Cody Kessler's playing, man. I mean, this guy has to have a 90% completion percentage through this preseason.
He looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Browns fans probably don't want to say anything about that.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, he got a bad rap for the way he played on the Browns, but I mean, name a quarterback that's been successful for the Browns lately. Yeah, I can't even name a successful Browns team. So yeah, well, so that's the quarterback position. We'll go ahead and move on to the next position, and that is the running back position. So you have guys like Leonard Fournette, T.J. Yeldon, Corey Grant, but we're gonna go ahead and do running backs and fullbacks. So what do you think the roster is gonna look like there?
I know they're gonna carry 4 backs. And
is that including the fullback?
I think that's including the fullback position. I think that Tommy Bohannon, the last 2 seasons, between what he did last year, I mean, he was clutch for us in the playoffs. He's developed soft hands. When we picked him up from the Jets, of all people, I was really skeptical of the pick, especially since we drafted that fullback out of Miami. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was in 2017.
Yes, and I expected him to make the roster over Bohannon, but instead they cut the 6th-round pick. They stuck with Bohannon, and I think he's paid dividends. I mean, he's produced touchdowns, which for a fullback is almost like seeing a unicorn. That doesn't really happen. So I think based on other positions such as the defensive line, cornerback, linebacker, because those are going to be so stacked on the defensive side, I think that one of the running backs, and even though some of them have been great, I really like that kid Cook. And I just think that because of the defensive depth that they're going to have, I think running back's going to be one of those positions that kind of, unfortunately, don't make it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about the running back position, man. I mean, Fournette's obviously Fournette. We all know he's great. Yeldon looks completely different, man.
Oh my God, he's been phenomenal.
I remember I went out to one of the Jaguars practices and I looked at Yeldon. I'm like, man, he looks like he's in tremendous shape. I mean, I saw him. He looked really good, and he looks quicker now. He's showing really good vision. He's probably the best kind of pass blocker on the team when it comes to picking up blitzes and stuff like that. And I mean, he's dependable. He doesn't fumble the ball, so he's everything you want in the backup running back at third down back. And Corey Grant, like, I mean, I look in there and, you know, you don't see Corey Grant returning kicks anymore, and I think that's because they have a really, they have an offensive plan for him. I mean, he's really going to be a big part of this offense. And what I've really loved is this 2 running back set that they got going on.
Has anything looked sexier than when they ran those plays last week?
Dude, it's tremendous just because you look at, because teams' game plans, it's basically, okay, stop Fournette. So when you put Fournette in the backfield on one end, Corey Grant on the other end, you motion Fournette out, all the linebackers shift over there, and, you know, all of a sudden you have Corey Grant who's like trying to catch a rabbit in the forest, you know what I mean? So, like, that's really, really cool. So I also have 3 running backs, 1 fullback making a team between, you know, those 3 running backs, and then Tommy Bohannon, and then, you know, when it comes to a 4th running back, like, I don't see us doing it just because last season there were only 3 running backs active each game anyway. I mean, they had either Chris Ivory or like Yeldon at the beginning of the year, like, as inactive, and, you know, if we can stash a guy like Tim Cook or Brandon Wilds on the practice squad, I'm not too worried somebody's gonna, you know, pick them up. If something happens where like Fournette gets injured or something like that, you can find running backs. I mean, that's one of the easiest positions to find because it's all instincts. You know what I mean? And, you know, we got guys like Yeldon and Corey Grant who can kind of carry the rock in that, you know, in their absence.
I completely agree.
So yeah, that's 2 running backs, 4 fullbacks, or 4 running backs, I should say. Now we'll move on to the wide receivers. Now the wide receiver group did kind of take a huge hit, man.
Yes, it did.
Marquise Lee, unfortunately, he's out for the season after taking just a gruesome hit to the knee. Painful to watch. I mean, right when I saw that, I knew it was bad. You know,
it was ugly. It was ugly, especially in slow-mo. Yeah. It reminded me of the hit that who was it? Willis McGahee took in the Ohio State game.
Yeah,
way back in the day. It was just ugly.
It was it reminded me of kind of like Marcus Lattimore in a way. But,
another good one.
Yeah, but I mean, the legs don't bend like that. But, you know, with the wide receiver position, you basically have 4 guys that are locked in there with Donte Moncrief, Dede Westbrook, Keelan Cole, DJ Chark. But, you know, the big question is, are they going to keep 5 or 6 receivers? Now, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think they're going to go 6. I think especially with that depth issue at this point, they're going to look to keep 6 receivers on the roster. I always kind of felt they were going to go 6 because you have a lot of talent there, and unfortunately, if you let a couple of them go, I think they're going to be scooped up pretty quick. And I know that there's actually a 3 to 4 way battle right now between Rashad Greene. You've got Lazard from Iowa State. You've got Jaydon Mickens, who I absolutely love. I think he's a phenomenal story. And then you got Shane Wynn. Yeah. So I think they're going to keep 2 of those out of that group of 4 battling right now.
So which of those 2 guys do you think they're going to keep?
This may be wishful thinking. I think Jaydon Mickens is going to make the roster because I think he gives them most. He gives them the most versatility, especially in special teams.
Definitely special teams.
He gave us like one of our biggest punt returns in the last 20 years that I can remember in terms of it was a touchdown. I don't remember the last time.
The Bengals.
Yep, I don't even remember the last time I saw a punt return touchdown. He had those great 2 touchdown catches a week later, or was it the same week?
It was actually several weeks later. It was against Houston when all our guys were down. We had obviously no Allen Robinson. We didn't have Allen Hurns. We didn't have Marquise Lee. So. No, you have rookies in there like Dede Westbrook, Keelan Cole, Jaydon Mickens had 2 touchdown catches, so he's a really exciting player.
I think the other one that's going to come in there and surprise everyone is going to be Lazard. Really? I think the undrafted rookie is going to make the team, and I think a big reason why is because he gives us something that nobody else has, and that's height. You really look for a great red zone target. The kid had over 25 touchdowns in college, and a big part of that, I believe 80% of the touchdowns he had in college were all in the red zone. He's a huge body. We lose that when you get rid of someone like Mercedes Lewis, who was on our team for the last decade, and he was that weapon that we had. That, you know, he's 6'6" plus. You can just pop it up on a fade route, and he'll go up and get the ball. So I think that based on how he's performed the last few weeks in preseason and how everyone raves about him in practice, I know he hasn't been as flashy as receivers, doesn't have the speed or the quickness of like a Mickens or a Wynn, but I think that added height and his body type will really help out this offense.
Yeah, we'll see with that. I mean, I definitely have Jaydon Mickens making a team. I really like Jaydon Mickens. He provides you a lot in special teams. I mean, he's a gunner. He does like kick returns. Obviously, he's like a punt returner as well. So, you know, I think he provides a lot in special teams. But the 6 wide receiver spot is kind of like hard for me because obviously you look at there and it's probably Rashad Greene kind of leading the charge. But, you know, I know I'm going to make a lot of FSU fans upset whenever I kind of talk about Rashad Greene, but I don't really like him too much. I mean, first of all, he's not really too available. Like, he only has like a little over 200 yards receiving in like the 3 years that he's been like on like the Jaguars roster. He doesn't really provide. He's not very good in special teams. And if you're going to be a 6 wide receiver, you got to contribute in like special teams. So I really think that, you know, I'm a pencil in Rashad Greene here, but I think this could be a spot that they're looking at waiver wires to kind of see like who guys are dropping, because you know, I imagine there's going to be players off some teams that are going to be dropped. But the Jaguars do like Rashad Greene. You know, they see him a lot more than I see him, and they're around him every day in practice. They know how you know, he's a quiet guy. He probably is good. You know, takes a lot of value in his job, kind of thing. So we'll see with that. So yeah, we each got 6 wide receivers. I got Rashad Greene. He's got Lazard kind of getting in that final spot. So now we'll move on to the tight end position. Tight end position, this is probably the weakest position on the team, arguably. I agree. If not the weakest, and definitely like a top 3 weakest unit. So how many tight ends do you got making the team, and who you kind of got on there?
I think that we're going to have 4, and I think it's going to be the 4 that everyone kind of expects, which would be Austen Seferian-Jenkins, Niles Paul, O'Shaughnessy, and personally my favorite, Ben Koyack. I think he's a very underrated player. I love his blocking ability. I love him for the fact that he had the game-winning touchdown catch against the Buffalo Bills, which I hope Bills Mafia forever burns in hell with that thought.
Tony Romo tried to focus with the Cole. Is the ball moving? Yes. It sucks is when you rewatch that highlight, it's like Tony Romo's like, and it's like, no, like Cole, I want you to hear touchdown. It was the only touchdown of the game. Get excited.
Yep, it was awesome. So those are my 4 that I think are going to make the roster. And personally, I've been very, very surprised at how much they've been using Niles Paul in the offense, because you saw against the Vikings in last week that they used him in a variety of formations. They're trying to get him down the field, which I just thought he was going to be a special teams player. I don't know how. I didn't really follow him too well in Seattle, so I really don't know what Seattle did with him.
Washington.
It was Washington?
Yeah, he was a special teams captain out in Washington.
Oh, okay. So, but I mean, I kind of expected, everyone said when he came over that that's what he was going to be. He was going to be a special teams specialist. And so, you know, I kind of just expected that. But seeing them flex him out and having him on crossing routes and kind of throwing him deep balls, I was kind of pleasantly surprised in how they've been using him. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on the tight ends. I mean, I think we keep 4 tight ends just because we like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Obviously, we're a big ground and pound team, and you know, you can put a tight end there. And like, obviously, Cam Robinson was struggling the first few games. He had a little better game, game 3, and you know, we run a lot of 2 tight end sets. I really like Austen Seferian-Jenkins. I've been extremely impressed with the way he's been blocking. He's been a really good blocker. O'Shaughnessy, obviously, stuff in special teams and also the pass game. Ben Koyack, a very good blocker. Niles Paul, I mean, he's almost a jack of all trades kind of thing. He was brought in for special teams, but you've seen him in there at fullback. They've also been running him out on routes. So yeah, I really think that the Jaguars will be keeping 4 tight ends as well.
Completely agree.
So now we move on to the offensive line. Now, the offensive line, the starters, it's all cemented. You have Cam Robinson at left tackle, Andrew Norwell, the former All-Pro, at left guard, Brandon Linder at center, AJ Cann at right guard, and Jermey Parnell at the right tackle spot. You know, before we kind of get into the backups, like, how have you felt about the offensive line so far?
I've been kind of critical of the offensive line, and maybe that's been because I played offensive line my entire football career, and I also coached offensive line in high school. So I'm very critical of the unit, but I've been pleasantly surprised with their performance. I think that the addition of Norwell was game-changing. You saw that last week when he actually played. He was phenomenal at the point of the attack, and I think he was the reason why Cam Robinson played much better in that last game, because it looked like Cam Robinson was not lost at all. A big reason why is because, you know, when you have a veteran like that can kind of help you with your responsibilities and help you make the calls, understand who you have to pick out when you're doing a fan block or you're sliding over. That makes a huge difference, especially for a young cat like that. So I think Norwell's veteran leadership helped him out quite a bit. I was very critical of Cam Robinson those first 2 games. And if Cam watches, I feel bad. He played like complete dog crap. Like, he looked awful, just getting slapped around, and Bortles was constantly under pressure, but he looked like he was the bully again, which is what we kind of saw him as a rookie. He just barrels over people. I'm a big fan of Linder. I love him. I think he's going to be an all-pro center at some point in his career, and I'm kind of ready to see the evolution of the right guard, right tackle position, because I know that Parnell's kind of on his way out, and then obviously AJ Cann really stepped up his game. I was expecting him actually to be cut this preseason. I thought he was going to be one of those surprise cuts from the team, but I think he's definitely proved me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you know, going back to like left tackle Cam Robinson, you know, I agree with you. Like, he started off really shaking. I remember going to the Jaguars practice, and he was getting beat every play.
Oh yeah,
like they were doing one-on-ones right in front of me. I was like, okay, you know, I don't know what it is. You know, he'll get better. Then week 1 he was pretty bad. Week 2 he was even worse. And, this last game, though, he played a lot better, and you had that maybe the Andrew Norwell effect. I remember last year Brandon Linder, when he'd have backups next to him, he wouldn't play as well. So I guess there's some kind of thing that you're an offensive lineman, so you'd probably know that if you have better talent around you, it's going to help you play a lot better. And AJ Cann is one guy that I've been extremely surprised with. Like I said, when I was out at the practice, I was like, okay, AJ Cann, Malik Jackson, oh shit, watch this. And then literally they go back and he stoneswalls him. I'm like, oh, nice little rep by AJ Cann. And then next up Marcel Dareus. I'm like, all right, let's see this. And then I'm waiting for Marcel Dareus to kind of whoop him, and he stoneswalls him again. I'm like, this is interesting. AJ Cann had a pretty good little practice, but he's been really good in during the season, and it's awesome just because if you can have him play really well. I mean, this unit, man. If Cam Robinson progresses and keeps doing and does as well as he did last game going on, I mean, we could have one of the top 3, top 5 units in the NFL when it comes to the offensive line.
Definitely.
But yeah, now we'll kind of get into the depth a little bit. Some guys that I have making it: Josh Wells. He's kind of a swing tackle. He's been on the team a little bit. Coaches like him. Chris Reed. He's like a backup guard. He's been doing pretty well during the preseason. I remember I had a tweet that went semi-viral where he picked up a dude and threw him 6 yards. That was pretty awesome. Tyler Shatley, he's very good. I mean, he could also be potentially a guy that the Jaguars could maybe get if they wanted to trade him, get like a 4th round pick or something for him, maybe even a little bit higher, just because, I mean, if he's on a lot of other teams, he could be a starter. You know what I mean?
Completely agree.
So he's a good center, very good for depth. And I also have our 4th round pick, Will Richardson, who's going to be hopefully the right tackle of the future if all goes as planned.
I love the Will Richardson pick. I was pleasantly surprised that he actually fell that. I thought he was a 2nd to 3rd rounder, and he came to us in the 4th round. I think he's going to be the right tackle of the future. And I agree with the other 3 picks. So if I had to pick all 4 backup offensive linemen, those would be exactly what I'd choose. The Chris Reed tweet that went viral sold me on Reed. I was a little skeptical of him because he got beat a couple times in practice, and he was put on roller skates here and there in when it comes to pass pro. But that pull where he just picks up a man and throws him like a rag doll, made me go, wow, that guy's got some strength and some power. And he moves really well for guys 300-plus pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of Tyler Shatley. I think that he's going to be invaluable. And as much as I love Linder, and I really think he's going to be one of the better centers for the next decade, his injury history tells you have to have a really good backup. And so I think that he's quality starter material. And if he goes to many other teams in the NFL, he would start. But I think because of that injury bug, we may be keeping him around for a long time. So if he has a good career in Jacksonville. And then Josh Wells has actually gotten a lot of buzz on being super valuable. The fact that he can play both tackle positions, he can slide in at guard here and there, and he's played very, very well in spot for Jacksonville. So I think that those 4 are solid locks at the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find good depth in the offensive line. I mean, honestly, the state of the offensive line in the NFL isn't really what it used to be. I don't know if because decreased playing time. I don't know if it's because of the spread offense in college, where they're not getting trained well enough, and they're not as NFL ready when they come into the NFL once they start doing pro style sets. But yeah, I mean, when we go back to the Chris Reed play, I just remember watching the film of that, and I'm like, I never actually saw something and posted a tweet about after watching that. I was like, I gotta show this. He just throws them. So that was pretty awesome. So yeah, I guess each of us have 9 offensive linemen making the roster. Now we will transition over to the best defense in the NFL. That is the Jaguars defense, man. We're going to start at the back end. We're going to go ahead and go into the safeties. So when it comes to our starters, we have Barry Church and Tashaun Gipson. These guys, I feel like fans, they always try to find somebody to pick on, I feel like. And I feel like these guys aren't really as appreciated as they should be, especially Tashaun Gipson. Now, granted, he let a couple balls go over the top, but I mean, when the Pro Bowl votings came out and Tashaun Gipson didn't make it, that was the first guy Doug Marrone picked up and called. He said, I think it was the only guy actually, he said, hey man, you deserved to make it, but you didn't. You did a lot of good things this year and all that kind of stuff. So I thought both those guys are pretty good. So what's your kind of stance on those starters?
I kind of agree with that exact take. I think that we take for granted the safeties we have, and I think that Gipson play where he let up the touchdown against the Steelers kind of had a lot of people buzzing on the. I mean, it was poor coverage, but I mean,
the free safety's tough because they have everything over the top. So if they mess up in one assignment, it's over there. As opposed to maybe if you're middle linebacker and run goes up the middle for 20 yards. It's not as odd. It's not like Myles Jack was supposed to stop that run gap right there, as opposed to when they throw over the top and see safety kind of trailing them. So it's a lot easier for a fan to kind of see that. You know what I mean?
I completely agree, and I think that safeties are kind of like offensive linemen in the aspect of you're never really noticed until you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Nobody looks at the left tackle and watches left tackle play until they blow a block and your quarterback gets sacked. So I don't think what people are really watching what our safeties are doing until they let up a touchdown. So I do think they're underappreciated. I think Barry Church and Tashaun Gipson are two of the better starting combos in the NFL. I think that you can, if you had to take them and put them on a platter with all the other starting safeties in the NFL, could you really tell me that there's 5 better duos at the safety position than those two?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think you can. I mean,
no,
they're I mean, I like Baltimore safeties with Tony Jefferson and like Eric Weddle, but yeah, I mean, they're a really solid unit. But the Jaguars this last draft, it was interesting, man. They totally, no one could have predicted their draft. They truly went best available player every round instead of saying, oh, we need tight end, let's get that. Oh, we could use an offensive lineman, let's go get this. And then in the 3rd round, it kind of throws everyone off. We get a safety, Ronnie Harrison, and this is how you keep a team good and successful. You have to draft these young guys that are going to be cheap to eventually replace these more expensive guys. And this Ronnie Harrison, he's most likely going to be Barry Church's replacement. I mean, Barry Church is probably his last year on the team, and Ronnie Harrison's going to most likely be starting in that strong safety role, take a lot of money off the payroll, and hopefully if we can keep this going, man, we can keep drafting and replacing these like expensive guys, and that'll keep our team successful for years.
And mark my words, 3 years from now, Ronnie Harrison will be in the Pro Bowl, and he will be considered the biggest steal of that draft.
I'm about it. I'm all about that. But yeah, I mean, he was rated as, Mike Mayock had him as like a top 50 prospect.
Yes, exactly.
He was an absolute steal. So good stuff for the Jaguars. Now it gets kind of interesting. How many safeties do you have us keeping, and who else do you have making a roster at that end?
I personally have us keeping 4 safeties. I think that they're going to be keeping Harrison, obviously, and I'm a big fan of Wilson. I think that he's going to be that 4th one. The safety position is crazy because we have a lot of really good talent on the entire defensive back unit, but I think that we're going to go with 4 because I personally think that they're going to be looking to keep a couple more cornerbacks than I know that you have.
Yeah. So with the safety position, I actually have us keeping 5. I have Jarod Wilson. The coaches like him. He's very good on special teams. He's good with that. But I also have Cody Davis. Now, Cody Davis. The big reason why I'm keeping him is just because I was looking at kind of his cap number. He is I forget how much money he is off the cap or whatever, but he's kind of an expensive player, and when they brought him in, Dave Caldwell basically said that he thinks he's like one of the best special teams players like in the NFL. So I think they think highly of this guy. Obviously the coaches, man, they have a big emphasis on having like a good special team. So I have Cody Davis making the team, and Jaguars keeping 5 safeties.
Okay.
So now we'll move on to the other defensive back position, and that is the cornerbacks. Gotta love our cornerback spots with starters like Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye. Man, what do you think about those guys?
Oh my God, they're one of the reasons why I feel like there's been a true rebirth in Jacksonville in terms of the love of our football team, and I think it's just having that outspoken. I think Jalen Ramsey is the embodiment of Duval. When we talk, when you see that video of the fan talking about when that Seattle player tried coming in the stands and that goof and that back and forth take, like, what would have happened if he would have gotten to the stands? He's like, he would have gotten hit because that's what Duval is. And I think Jalen Ramsey takes that attitude and embodies the city in him. And I love the way he plays football. And I think AJ Boye is the perfect complement to that, where he's just a quiet lunch pail to work kind of guy. You don't see him jar his mouth nearly as much, and he just does his work and does a phenomenal job at it. And he's always going to get probably picked on a little bit more than Ramsey because he's going to get that second look where they're not even going to really consider the right side of the field. So they're looking at AJ, and it's going to be you have to pick one of the two devils, and either way you're screwed.
Yeah, mean, I love me some Jalen Ramsey. I just remember back when, the Jaguars were 2-14, 3-13, when we were, so bad. And I was just sitting here. We were bad. And I was looking over at the West Coast, seeing, Richard Sherman get all this spotlight. And I was just like, how cool would it be to have a player like that and have, an actual good team. But, we've almost become that new, Seattle of the South. And Jalen Ramsey, I mean, he's basically, he basically said in a GQ interview how, a lot of players would want something to be said, but they don't really have the personality to, put it out there. So Jalen would kind of be the mouthpiece for them. And, I mean, it's awesome having a guy like Jalen Ramsey. He can back up his shit talk. I mean, I love he almost has, jewelry hanging off with the mouthpieces dangling.
It's become like a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
The mouthpiece, I think, is everything.
Oh, yeah. Then there's this one GIF out there that's just a slowly moving, mouthpiece, which is just, awesome. And then I agree with you about, AJ Boye. We're both fans of him being, a UCF guy and everything. And AJ Boye, he's a quiet dude, and he's a really good film room technician. I mean, I saw some plays where he was basically just he knew what route the guys were running, and he basically baited them into throwing. That's exactly what happened when Russell Wilson threw to Jimmy Graham. I mean, you could tell he was trailing him. He was like, "Come on, throw it!" And all of a sudden he threw it, and he just broke. He got right in front of that, and it looked like such an easy interception. I mean, it wasn't even close. So those guys are awesome. We unfortunately lost Aaron Colvin this offseason. I mean, it was kind of expected. I mean, he was debating whether the Jaguars were making a hard push for him, and it was hard for him to lead. But when it comes down to it, it was the best move for him, just because as long as Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye are on the team, he's always going to be in their shadow.
Correct.
No matter how well he plays. I mean, when the defensive back, when they go get 5 interceptions, you get the call from Deon. It's Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye there. It's not Aaron Colvin, and it's kind of like the whole Ricky Bobby and Dale thing, where
shake and bake.
Yeah, the shake and bake, where what Ricky Bobby's getting all the fame while what was it, Dale? What was it? Yeah, Dale was getting all the just kind of the kind of backup in a sense, not really getting the fame. So obviously those 3 guys, now we have DJ Hayden in there filling in for Aaron Colvin. So those 3 guys are roster locks. So I'll go ahead and ask you how many cornerbacks you got making and who you got making on the team.
I have 6 cornerbacks making. Obviously the 3 you just mentioned in Boye, Ramsey, and Hayden. And even I was not a huge fan of the Hayden pickup, but
nor was I.
I think he was a little overpaid, especially with who we just got. From undrafted free agency and the kids that we had coming back.
And I like Patman. I kind of like Patman. I
was just about to
fill in there.
I think the 2 other guys I would have filling in are Patman and Myrick, and I think both of them have played very well in the preseason. Patman, especially when he had to fill in for a couple of starts when Ramsey wasn't there, he's looked phenomenal, and he's the kind of player that bounces back when he makes a mistake. So he blows a coverage or he causes a penalty, and the next play he's in on a huge tackle, or he's making a huge pass breakup, or almost making an interception. So I'm really looking forward to see how he progresses. And obviously Myrick is just a great player, and I think he's super fast, and I think he's going to help us a lot in special teams. And I'm also a huge fan of Quentin Meeks from the undrafted free agent. I believe he played for Stanford, right?
Yeah, he's at Stanford.
I think that the coaching staff loves him. I think he's got that Ramsey-ish in him, because he's got that kind of bullish attitude. He's got a huge frame.
Yeah, he's got a big frame. He's just a little slow.
Exactly, and I think that's going to be something that they really like, because they obviously like physical corners. I mean, our 2 starters are 6 foot plus, 200 pounds, and do not get pushed around in the run game. So I think that they go with him and keep him on the team.
Yeah, interesting. So you got 6 cornerbacks making it. I can definitely see that. I mean, Herndon's also been out there doing well. But, yeah, I mean, Tyler Patman, I've always liked Tyler Patman. I was kind of, in my videos, I was trying to make it like there was some kind of competition, just because I wanted to see some kind of upset. Because the Jaguars roster, I mean, all these guys were so, locked in. I mean, you even had, we'll go into later about the linebacker position, but, you thought, the strong side linebacker competition there. Leon Jacobs basically gets a job, and you look around and there's punt return, that's a big battle, and other than that, I mean, maybe nickel cornerback, let's go ahead and route. No, it's DJ Hayden, and Tyler Patman is a good backup. I mean, every time he's in there, I mean, he's flashing, making plays, getting his hands on the ball somehow, and I got that. And I also have Jalen Myrick making the team. I mean, the fact that they kept him last year, I mean, it wasn't even all that great in the preseason last year. I was surprised he made the roster, and he made it, and the Jaguars coaching staff likes him. Obviously a speedster, so that's all good with the cornerback spot. Now we'll transition over to the linebacker spot. Now, linebackers, I love our starters between in the nickel spot, at least, between Telvin Smith and Myles Jack. Telvin Smith's an All-Pro, Pro Bowler. I think Myles Jack will get that recognition. And then our starting strong side linebacker, Leon Jacobs, 7th-round pick out of Wisconsin. How do you feel about, kind of the starting base defensive linebackers?
Well, to be honest, Leon Jacobs has pleasantly surprised me. He was one of those players that when you watch him in workouts and you see this college film and he stands out, and he didn't really flash in college as much because he was behind some great starters themselves, and he didn't really play late into his junior and senior year. But when you watch him on film, he jumps off because he is so fast. At the strong side linebacker position is generally a run-down linebacker. He's a guy who's going to stuff the run. He's got the size. I mean, everyone's seen the picture. He's got the size to take on blocks.
It almost looks Photoshop.
Exactly. Man. He reminds me of that kid that played for Baylor that everyone was making fun of.
Yeah, Oakman.
Oakman. Yeah, he is the next Sean Oakman.
Yeah.
He might be our meme one day. But I think Leon Jacobs is a great strong side linebacker with what he's been doing. When you watch him on film, he is doing a great job bending when he's pass rushing and getting around the corner and putting pressure on the quarterback, and he's great at holding the point of attack on the run. So I am pleasantly surprised. I expected Blair Brown to be the guy that was going to be penciled in. He's the starter. No one's going to think about it, and he's just blown me away with his play.
Yeah, with the starting base set, I noticed Leon Jacobs the first game. I was kind of watching him closely. I thought he might have been a little nervous because he played kind of stiff, and I saw him falling down a lot, and that's kind of when you're playing high and stiff, you kind of get caught up in your legs and you fall down a little bit, and but he has been doing a lot better. Obviously, if you're a 7th rounder rookie, starting in there, you're in with the ones, it's gonna take a transition, and I think Myles Jack in the base sets is also taking a little bit of a transition too. I wasn't really all that impressed with him in the Minnesota game. I thought a lot of runs were going right up, his kind of lane, but he did better this last game, and I'll expect a transition there. And I noticed some of their calls were getting in late, but when you look at the base set, when you have 3 linebackers on the field, Myles Jack's playing a new position, and Leon Jacobs is playing a new position, so that should all take transitioning. But obviously the nickel spot where you have 5 DBs, 2 linebackers in there, Myles Jack is all familiar with that, and that's what you're in about 70% of the time now that it's such a passing league. But that's all. Gotta love the linebackers, but the thing about the linebackers is there's really not much depth here.
Yeah.
How many linebackers do you have making a team, and who are those guys?
I think that we're going to carry 6, because I think it's appropriate to have at least 1 backup per position, but I wouldn't be surprised if we only carried 5. And especially because we play so much nickel that I think that having 5 linebackers as opposed to 6 is acceptable.
And Lorente McCray could potentially play backup Sam.
Correct, which I think McCray is one of those guys that he's a tweener between linebacker and defensive end. But I am a fan of Blair Brown. I think he's going to make the team, and I think he's going to play pretty well for us in spot. And I'm a huge fan of Payne. And part of it is just because he's a Central Florida kid that played for Stetson.
Stetson, about 20 miles north of here.
Exactly. So he's he's local, and when you watched him playing college, he jumped off the charts. So I think he's going to be a strong linebacker for us, and at least continue to give us that depth that we need over the next few years. But I may stay on that 5 range because of exactly that. I think McCray gives a little bit of flexibility because he can play hand down in the dirt defensive line, or you can move him back to that strong side linebacker, and he can play either of them. And I believe the other 2 are going to be the ones that we carry for sure.
Yeah, see, I think that we will start off with 6 just because, Dante Fowler is, he's suspended week 1, so Lorente McCray's going to have a big role in the pass rush, so I definitely think that we're going to have to start off with 6 linebackers, and those guys kind of play a lot of special teams. But, I really think this is a spot that the Jaguars will be looking at waiver wires, and, our 6th linebacker is probably on another roster right now.
Possibly,
that's just my opinion, but, yeah, for now, I guess I got, Donald Payne, Blair Brown, and King, Deon King, I believe his name is. I have those guys making it, but honestly, man, I really expect the Jaguars will be picking up an extra linebacker, try to replace Blair Brown or to replace King. So, yeah, we'll kind of see what goes on there. Donald Payne has been doing pretty well during the preseason, so backup Mike, it's a hard position to learn just because you're making all the calls and whatnot. So. That's all good there. And the last position unit we will go into is a defensive line. It's a very, very talented unit to say the least. God. Our backup line could be starting on a lot of teams this year, teams out there. Now you look at the starters. We got Yannick Ngakoue, Malik Jackson, Marcel Dareus, Calais Campbell. You have backups like Abry Jones. You had Taven Bryan. We haven't even mentioned Dante Fowler Jr. yet. So all those guys should be pretty cemented unless they try to pull pull something on us and maybe cut a guy like Abry Jones to clear up some cap space, but I don't see that happening. They probably would have done that already. But
exactly.
Yeah. What's your stance on the defensive line?
Well, I think it's the best line in football, and I hope Eagles fans hear that and they get angry because
Eagles fans get mad about that, bro.
They really do, and I think Jacksonville has the most talented defensive line, and you can tell that this team has Tom Coughlin's fingerprints all over it, because when you look back to the premier Giants teams that won those Super Bowls in the late 2000s and 2010s, that's what it won with, was defensive line. So I think that we have the best D-line, and all the players you mentioned, I think that you look at Abry Jones, he could start on almost any other roster, and I think he will be doing some spot duty. Depends on obviously how Marcel Dareus recovers from that pectoral injury and if he'll be ready for week 1. But I think he's a quality nose tackle, and I think that obviously it shows because we gave him so much money on that 4-year contract. But I really do like the depth, especially we have at 3 positions, because I'm a huge Michael Bennett fan. I know he was a late pickup from us a couple years ago out of Ohio State. He's a great penetrating defensive tackle, and I think he's someone that's going to make this roster as well. We mentioned Laurent McCray, I'm also a pretty big fan of.
He'll be in third down sets with Dante Fowler getting out, and you haven't seen much of him in that position because Dante Fowler, besides his rookie year where he obviously tore his ACL, he's played in every single game, and so is Yannick Ngakoue. So we've really yet to see any kind of backup unit in their play since the year 2015.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
So that's kind of crazy to think.
Oh yeah. Now, if you don't mind me asking, who do you think would be a surprise cut from that D line if you had to pick one of them?
Let me think. Surprise cut. That one will be tough, man. I mean, maybe probably like Eli Anku. I mean, if I were to say surprise cut, it might be like Abry Jones, just because we are very, very crowded at the defensive tackle spot. We have a lot of money in there. Marcel Dareus, a lot of money. Malik Jackson, a lot of money. Abry Jones, also a lot of money. And you saw when Marcel Dareus got in there, our run defense significantly improved. Marcel Dareus is a better player than a guy like Abry Jones, and he also drafted Taven Bryan. Now Taven Bryan has been playing a lot more like defensive end, and to be honest with you, I would rather just stick this guy at one position for now, just because I mean his head has to be spinning right now. He's only played in 1 preseason game so far. Defensive line is a tough position to play, just because back in high school, or not in high school but in college, if you're a first-round pick as a defensive lineman, you're just using basically pure ability just to throw people around, and you're just an absolute beast. But you have to learn technique, and once you're in the NFL, and he's probably gonna be playing, I guess, more defensive end, I would assume now. I mean, that's what he kind of has himself at, and I guess the surprise cut, I don't have him making the roster just because I think that the Jaguars are gonna IR him, put him on the injured reserve, and that's DeJuan Smoot.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, he was a 3rd-round pick, so you're not going to give up on a 3rd-round pick that easily, I don't think. He did play pretty well last year, even though he didn't really have any sacks. He was pretty good in run support, but what does he have to offer week 1 if he were to make the roster? You know, I feel like he can put him on the IR for 8 weeks, get him back, get him healthy and everything. I'm not really sure. I think he has a foot issue or something like that. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I mean, I guess he actually is my surprise cut, but I have him being kind of on the IR.
Okay, yeah, that would be who my surprise cut was too, just simply because we haven't really seen him much in training camp, much in preseason at all, and obviously it was from that injury. And I think what you said, he was good in spot defense when it came to the run defense, but I think he's kind of underperformed in pass rush scenarios, because I think that he's a guy that Jacksonville is counting on to be a cheap alternative, a backup, someone that they can definitely rely on, especially with Calais Campbell probably going. I think this might be Calais' last year in Jacksonville, personally. I know Caldwell and Idzik like to structure their contracts to be basically 2-year deals, so they can get all that guaranteed money paid and they can make those cuts. So I think there's going to be a huge change going into next year, where we're going to see a Barry Church, a Calais Campbell kind of leaving the roster with those huge cap hits, and those younger guys coming in taking a second contract like a Smoot that may be a little bit cheaper. But I just don't think he's really progressed the way you would expect a 3rd-round pick to play, especially someone that had as much potential as he did when he was coming out of Illinois. Because at one point during his junior year, he was considered to be a 1st-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
And then he drops 2 rounds going into his senior year from poor play, and it just seems like he's never really picked up the defense that well since he's come to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the draft, I mean, like I was kind of saying earlier, you have to build through the draft, and you want your top 4 guys, your top 4 draft picks to hit. I mean, you know, you look at our draft picks this year. You know, you want Taven Bryan to maybe eventually replace a guy like, you know, maybe like Malik Jackson, Dareus, or maybe even if they see him as a strong side defensive end, maybe even going in there and replacing like Calais Campbell. Second round pick, DJ Chark. I mean, we have Moncrief on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Those guys are similar players. He's going to be out there. Ronnie Harrison, he's going to replace Barry Church. You got Will Richardson replacing Jermey Parnell. So, you know, you have all these guys that are on these cheap 4-year deals, and we need DeJuan Smoot to be good, man. I mean, we have to have that pick hit, and you know, he's obviously a fan favorite. He's got his like YouTube channel. He's been on my channel before in an interview, and you know, I'd really like to see him make an impact. But you know, when you look at him, he's been injured. He hasn't gone through the whole rigorous training camp process of Tom Coughlin. So you know, put him on the IR, work him back slowly, get him back into good shape, and then you know, hopefully maybe he can make an impact either at the back half of this year or next season.
Let's hope.
So yeah, like when it comes to me, you know, I have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys making it. I have some of the backups: Abry Jones, Taven Bryan, Dante Fowler Jr., Eli Ngakoue, Lorente McCray, and Michael Bennett. But it's interesting with this spot because there's probably going to be an extra player make it just because Dante Fowler is suspended week 1, so that's not going to count as a roster spot.
Correct.
So you know, you might have a guy make it, and then next week he's out of here.
Who knows? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you know, we'll of course like progress. You know, see how that progresses. But you know, now we move on to perhaps the most important, most exciting position in sports, and that's the kicker, the punter. Long snapper, he got making it.
Oh my God! Well, I think there's not going to be any surprises here, but obviously we have Carson Tinker, who's been snapping for us for years, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Obviously, I am a huge Josh Lambo fan. Oh yeah, I think he has been one of the greatest pickups. I saw a really cool video where they're talking about soccer with him and how, you know, could he possibly go play for Fulham, and you know, he was jokingly saying, I don't know if Shad Khan will believe in that, but I really love his attitude. I love that he has embraced the city, just like Cody Kessler did when we picked up Cody Kessler. The first thing his tweeting is about Duval and everything, so I'm really, really happy with him. And obviously, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by our punter, the kid we took out of Mississippi State.
Logan Cook,
Cook has I mean, his kicks have been awesome. The most important thing for a punter is hang time. When you punt the ball in the air, you want it to be in the air as long as humanly possible, so those gunners and that entire punt team can get downfield and contain and stop the punt returner as soon as possible. So I think the fact that his hang time has been hanging at 4.5, 5 seconds every punt, and he had that 150-plus yard punt a couple weeks ago, I think he's looking pretty solid. And a lot of people were skeptical when we cut Brad Nortman and we drafted this kid, and everyone's like, oh, he looks like garbage, and I'm very, very happy with that decision right now.
Yeah, I mean, when they drafted Logan Cook, they were obviously high on the guy because a week later they went and cut Brad Nortman. I mean, I don't know what happened to Brad Nortman. He was pretty good his first year, but last year, I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, he had one punt against the Rams that went like 15 yards or something like that. And
Father Time eventually catches everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So you know, that kind of concludes kind of our roster prediction. I mean, it's a very, very talented roster.
It really is.
You have to be happy about it. I mean, it's not, you know, the most headline worthy kind of thing, just because there's really not too many roster battles going on. Blake Bortles didn't lose a spot to Chad Henne this year. You don't have all that kind of, you know, you don't have Brandon Albert over here like holding back. He's got his high haters shirt there. Awesome shirt. But yeah, that'll conclude the video. So James, appreciate you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.